If the season began today, how would the St. Louis Blues do?
Hey, this is Brain Chen.
Subscribe to Lock On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues. On today's episode of Locked On Blues, I'm going to talk to you if the season began today. How would the Blues do? Was this a rebuild or a regroup? And then a dream player that I still want the Blues to one day have? And seeing a tweet today, I got a little bit excited about the possibility of maybe something happening in the future. We have a lot to get to today, but I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So, one of the big talking points, and excuse my voice, I have a sore throat, but I'm healthy. I don't get it. It's fine. Um, but one of the big talking points, right, that we've had this off season is kind of about the team getting stronger and better than they were last season. That's usually how it goes with all the teams, right? Even when you win the cup, the conversation that you're going to have in the off season is how can we do it again? How can we get back there? And I think for the Blues, they accomplished something that we all wanted, and that was for them to go back to the playoffs. And they did that. Now, they lost in double overtime in game 7, but they were able to accomplish something that we wanted them to achieve this past season. And that's great. But the job isn't done yet because when I'm looking ahead to this season, all I'm thinking about is, wow, it's going to be a lot more competitive. The Dallas Stars are a team that always have me worried in the Central. And you have to keep in mind too, and this is something that I'm going to say time and time again, but you don't want to be a wild card team. You want to be a 1, 2, or 3 seed. You don't want to be a wild card. And I think for the Blues, their goal for this upcoming season should try to be to get the 3 seed in the Central. Now, I know what you're saying. Hale, there were so many competitive teams. You even said maybe wild card 1. I know what I said, and I stand by that because right now that is the reality. So you might be wondering, well, what can they do between now and the regular season for you to have more confidence? And it's really going to be about how the players show up to training camp. And I know that sounds silly, but it's the reality. I need to know what they're going to do this upcoming season in terms of the pairs and the lines because I'm expecting some of the younger guys that were with the Thunderbirds to be playing here for the Blues wearing the blue note. And again, I am aware that the Blues lost some veteran talent. Ryan Suter is a player that I am still really upset about. I think the Blues should have re-signed him, and I know that he was older. Like, I'm very aware of that, but he did step up big time. So for me personally, that one stung. But again, like when it comes to the defense, you're going to be relying on guys like Colton Parayko, Cam Fowler, right now Justin Folk, Philip Broberg, Tyler Tucker, and then you have to ask some questions, right? Well, Matthew Kessel. I don't know. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, there are some players where you have to kind of question. And that's when it's going to be up to the younger guys, and they're going to have to make the decision really for the team if they should be getting the call up. Now, I think, in my opinion, there, and I know Doug said that he's not going to do any more trades or anything like that, but I wouldn't count it out. And what I mean by that is, the offer sheets didn't happen until August 13th. It's August 6th. So, at least for me, I can't rule that out because I did not think that was going to happen last offseason. So right now, I think it's like 95%. Nothing else will happen. 5%, maybe something will. I just can't rule out Dougie Armstrong. Um, but then I'm looking at the offense, right? And one player in particular that stood out to me, who, in my opinion, surprised me a little bit, was Jimmy Snuggerud. And this is a player that's going to make such a huge impact on the team this upcoming season. The offense got stronger. There is no doubt about it. And I just want to address thing with the defense. I'm hoping Logan Mayu is ready. And the only reason why I didn't really mention him is because he only did play 7 games with the Canadians before being sent back down. And I just personally don't know necessarily if he's going to make the team. But what I can say is that's why, again, I want to emphasize why training camp is so important. So I wanted to address that really quickly before we switch gears. But for the forwards, it's going to be competitive. And this is something where players really have the ability to shine. And for Jimmy Snuggerud, he shined. I I suspect Snuggerud is gonna make the team coming out of camp. For me, that's not a question. But then there are some other players where you have to kind of maybe wonder how they're going to do out of camp. Because again, if like we were talking about players, maybe when it came to defense, right? Because we know defense sometimes can be a little bit of an issue with the Blues. You don't say, but no, it's the reality that this team has faced. And I don't know why my notes app is not working. Hmm. Very odd. I always have notes. Notes app is back and it's working, but what I had down was Dvorsky. Now, he only played 2 games this past season. One was at Edmonton and one was home against Nashville. Here's the thing. He didn't have any points, okay? It's 0-0-0-0 when his first game on the 23rd of March versus Nashville, he put about 10 minutes on the ice. And then at Edmonton, it was about 8 minutes. Now, he had no shots a- against Nashville. At least he had 2 shots on Edmonton. But again, like, it's just one of those things where, he's a young guy, uh, 10th overall, 2023 draft. Like, I'm not putting so much pressure on him. But he didn't really play the way that I think a lot of us expected him to, especially with how he was doing in with the T-Birds. Like you just weren't expecting that, right? But again, then you look at guys like a Jimmy Snuggerud, and this was a player that really, in my opinion, stepped up big time. I mean, as I said, he played 7 games. Um, and again, like, and I hate to be like this, but in the 7 games that he played in the regular season, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points total, and 1 power play goal. We love a power play goal, but he was putting up about like 15 and a half minutes. So a little bit different than that. And then in the playoffs he scored 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points. So yeah, Jimmy Snuggerud played, in my opinion, good hockey, really good hockey. And I think for me, it wasn't necessarily the regular season that solidified that. It was the playoffs and how he played. And again, you have to remember that he was like the lone goal scorer in, I believe it was game 2. So the difference between the two players did stand out to me was Snuggerud getting a lot more ice time than Dvorsky. But again, still young, time to develop. But if the season began today, I I would say Dvorsky would make the team, especially just kind of going off of how I've seen him outside the Blues with some other things, but that's what I would have. So let me know your thoughts on that one. All right, I want to talk about something because people ask me all the time when it comes to the Blues if, well, we'll get into what it was called. But first, I'm going to talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. I personally use FanDuel all the time. I was gonna say too often, but is it too often when you're winning? I don't know. But what I do know is that I am always putting money on my baseball team. That is right. That is the St. Louis Cardinals, who had a 5-3 win over the LA Dodgers today. So again, huge win for the Cardinals right now. If we want to look at a little bit of standings, not doing so hot in the NL Central. They're at 500 now, so I guess that's a plus above the Pirates, right? But it's a tough NL Central this year if the Brewers continuing to show dominance. But again, Cards aren't completely out of it just yet, so they need all of the wins. So why not bet on them? I know. I know it sounds crazy, but bet on the Cardinals under 50 games to go. Bet on the Cardinals. That's what I do. Again, a big win today. So new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get 150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit fanduel.com to get started. JD does such a great job with the Locked On Cardinals here, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And I have to tell you, after today's win of 5-3 victory over the Dodgers, I will be tuning in and watching JD's reaction after I'm done filming my episode. So let's get back to this conversation that people have had with me. They say, Hale, are the Blues in a rebuild or is this like a regroup? What is going on? I get asked this quite a lot from non-Blues fans, and I felt like it was a really interesting kind of conversation that we can have because this is something that, in my opinion, I don't think I really talked about because I didn't see it as a rebuild and I didn't really see it as a regroup. I just saw it as making additions to better the team. I just didn't see it as total rebuild, but I guess for some of these people that don't follow the Blues, it might have looked like that with the offer sheets last offseason. I mean, Doug Armstrong, he's aggressive, a double offer sheet to Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. So I guess in the eyes of some NHL fans, it can kind of appear that the Blues were being aggressive for a reason. And I again, the reason probably to just continue to grow and be a better hockey team. And then it was a little bit confirmed when Doug Armstrong said that the offer sheets actually sped up a 3-year process. I thought that was interesting because I want to know what is the game plan? What do they plan on doing? And I know that they spent a little bit more money than they would have on Holloway and Broberg, but I felt like it was money well spent. Then you have what happened with Logan Mayu and Zach Bolduc, that trade that went down. Trade I was upset about just because I like Zach Bolduc. I'm happy for him with the opportunity to play for the Montreal Canadiens, where he's from. But again, at the same time, it burned, it stung, it hurt because you have a young player that had so much potential and then he's gone. But like again, different conversation. But then people were asking me, well, if they were willing to get rid of Zach Bolduc, there must be something going on where they're trying to repurpose this team. And I think the word repurpose actually suits the situation better than a rebuild. A rebuild is something like Chicago, San Jose, Boston, Philadelphia, those type of teams are doing. A regroup is something smaller, maybe some of the things that Vancouver has done, Edmonton, even small, even Florida. When I think of regroup, I just think of like a very small kind of move, something that's not crazy, but just helps kind of put everything back together, right? Then I think of maybe like a, a repurpose in a sense. Like and I know, follow along with me. There were some missing pieces that the Blues had to figure out. They figured out the goalie situation, and I don't think it was ever a situation, but now it's a little bit more solidified with Hofer getting an extension. You know, you have Binnington as your 1A, you have Hofer as your 1B, right? So that's all situated. Defense. They got a really great talent within Logan Mayu. Now, will that translate to the NHL? I sure hope it does. So you have no more Nick Leddy, who was a problem last season. But you also have, again, a talent like a Philip Broberg, a Cam Fowler, who's been playing exceptional hockey, Colton Parayko. And again, you have to just trust a little bit in Tyler Tucker. You have, honestly, very sharp and talented players defensively. Then you look at the offense, right? And you have your superstar within Robert Thomas. No denying that one. Jordan Kyrou. You have Dylan Holloway, Bushi. And here is the one that we don't talk about enough, Jake Neighbors, just because I don't think he had that great of a season last season. So the Blues overall have a bunch of talent. I'd even say Tex DA. He's Olympic bound. Sonny, Nathan Walker, Torchenko, like the list goes on and on, right? I'm not going to name every player. It seems like that, but I'm not going to do that. The point is that there's a lot of talented players on the Blues. But yes, over time, they had to make trades. They had signings. Like it wasn't like overnight. But I guess what happened with Zach Bolduc kind of threw some people off that don't necessarily follow the Blues. And it's like, whoa, they're willing to get rid of him? Because I think Doug spoke so highly of Zach Bolduc, especially prior to last season. And he said I could see him being a top 6 player. So when you have a general manager of a team so public, and people know Doug Armstrong because he's been doing this forever. So people know who he is. So when he talks, especially to the national media, people are going to know who he is. So a lot of people paid attention to Zach Bolduc. And again, I am not blaming anybody. Like again, trades happen. That's hockey. That's life, right? Um, the point being is I think people then got confused about the direction of the Blues, and I am here to set the record straight. The Blues have the same objective, the same goal, right? In a couple of years, Steen's going to take over as GM. That's still happening. The Blues, they still have their goals of going back to the playoffs and potentially being Stanley Cup champions once again. Still a goal. They're not going to tank. And I know there's been people that said, oh, well, maybe they should tank. Why would they tank? The Blues are too talented to tank. And you wouldn't do the double offer sheets and overpay a little, even though it was a little bit, you wouldn't do that for those players just to tank. That would be ridiculous. Like, that's honestly insane to me. So they're not going to do that. This is a team that had some things to figure out, and they still have some things to figure out, right? I mean, training camp is a huge part of this process. I know they have a new suitor, not Ryan. It's fine. I'm just gonna, I know his name's Pew Suitor. I'm just gonna call him new suitor because I am still upset about Ryan Suitor. But like again, like he has a great shot. Like I'm so optimistic about this upcoming season because of the talent that the Blues acquired. And I'm going to do episodes diving into those players. But I think for the purposes of what we call what happened, I think we just call it an off season. I don't think it was a rebuild or a regroup, maybe repurposing some things, but overall, I wouldn't get too crazy about what we call it. Before I talk about a dream player, a player that I want the Blues to have to wear the blue note, I want you to like and subscribe to Locked On Blues here on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, MySpace, Facebook. I don't know. Like, subscribe. Also, I have a Twitter account and it's called at Locked On Blues. And we tweet about the Blues. We have fun conversations. And sometimes some of the things that you say to me on Twitter, I am able to incorporate onto my show. So it's a great way to get involved. We have such a great community of people, and it's really just a way for all of us fans of the Blues to hang out, have some fun, and rep our guys in the blue. So, with that being said, who is my dream player? Well, it just so happened today I'm scrolling down on social media and I'm seeing something from a page that we've both followed each other. It's called Puck Report NHL, and it says deluxe edition cover of NHL 26 featuring Matthew, Brady, and Keith Tkachuk. And I almost freaking cried. I almost freaking cried. Why is that? Because it's so cool. I mean, you have Keith Tkachuk rocking his blue note, and it's a picture from like back in the day, right? So I'm like, a young Keith with Matthew and Brady, like that's so cool. I thought it was so cool. Um, Matthew is in the center, Brady to the left, and Keith to the right. And a lot of people don't like it. I think they're just haters, honestly. I love the Kachuk family. I'll never get the people that don't like the Kachucks. But it just got me thinking, Matthew, Brady, why not both? Come to the Lou, come home. I would love more than anything for Matthew and Brady to be repping the blue note. I think personally it's going to be Matthew. He's already a two-time Stanley Cup champion with the Florida Panthers back to back. I know Brady is going to want to chase the Stanley Cup. And why not do it with St. Louis? But I do get it. Like, he is captain of Ottawa, so I can't see him not staying with the Sens, right? I know the guys at Sens Central are going to probably be like, oh my gosh, Haley, don't say that. But like, I would love for him to chase the cup here with the Blues. I just don't see him doing that. But Matthew, that's such an interesting one because I feel like he already accomplished what he set out to accomplish in the NHL. We know how much he loves the Blues, the Cards. He's such like a home body guy, right? Like he loves it here. He brought the cup here both times. So for that reason, I saw this cover and I'm like, imagine Matthew Tkachuk wrapping the blue note. Oh, baby, that would be amazing. But no, it was so cool seeing that cover. It was cool seeing Keith Tkachuk, by the way, um, as the version of him when he played Not Now. And like having all three of the guys on the cover was so cool. I don't get why people don't like it. Like, I really think the Tkachuks are likable. Maybe I'm crazy for saying that, but I do find them to be likable. I don't know why. Like, they have max aura. I don't know if you know what that means. That's kind of like a young TikTok-y term, but they do. They give off that max aura energy. So again, let me know if you like the Tkachuks or you don't like the Tkachuks and why. I just think they were a really well-rounded hockey family. I know that their sister, Matthew and Brady's sister, Taryn, great at field hockey, by the way. Athletic family, St. Louis natives. And again, you would love it if they came here to play for the Blues. Maybe other fan bases wouldn't, which I don't blame them because, like, again, wanting to play for the best team in the NHL, like, it's, it is a flex. But no, all seriousness, I am so happy for them to be on the cover. I think it's such a big honor for all three of them, and it's nice to see our Blue Note being represented by the one and only Keith Tkachuk. All right, I will talk to you all tomorrow, and like always, let's go Blues.